Well, good morning, outdoor freaks, and welcome to another exciting HS Outdoor Adventures. Today we're out here on Lake of Egypt, and I'm going to explain kind of a multifaceted technique that you might have heard a lot about if you bass fish and you kind of wonder what it is. Junk fishing. What is junk fishing? Well, honestly, it's what every single one of us do every day, where we go to the lake and we take multiple rods with us with different baits on them, and we throw them until we figure out what's working for the day. This gets talked down about a lot on the professional bass circuit by some people, because they think you need to be technique specific to catch fish at certain times of the year in certain degrees of water, but it's not necessarily the case. So I've got 5 rods with me today, and we're gonna cruise around Lake of Egypt out here in southern Illinois and see what we can come up with. So hang tight and let's see what happens. First technique we're going to try today, throw a few casts with us, see what happens, is a buzz bait. And you can see I don't use a skirt on my buzz bait. I learned this technique from a professional bass fisherman, and this is actually the first time I've ever tried doing it, but honestly that's what junk fishing is just picking up something and giving it a try, and if it doesn't work, picking up something else. Now, it's been explained to me a couple of times that it's also having the confidence to be running down a bank, say you're pitching something at docks, and moving into a corner and thinking, maybe a shaky head would work here, and then switching from the jig to the shaky head and seeing what happens. So that's kind of what it is in a nutshell too. So there's kind of 2 different definitions to it. One, just going out to the lake with multiple rod and reels, throwing multiple techniques, and 2, be running down a bank and you're throwing jigs at a dock, you're not biting, you get to an open spot, you throw the shaky head, you get a bite, and instead of immediately just continuing to throw the shaky head, you're confident enough to put it down and go back to throwing the jig because that's worked in the past. So those are the 2 definitions of junk fishing that I've got from all the stuff that I've read about it. And of course, bass and crappie, maybe even bluegill to that matter, everybody junk fishes. Nobody that I know anyway that is an amateur fisherman or a weekend warrior goes out with one specific technique in mind, unless it's a certain time of the year and they're not hitting, say, top water or a fast moving bait because the water temperature is too low for that. So those are the definitions of junk fishing that I've picked up from all of my research and studying over the last 10 years of trying to be a better bass fisherman, not a one-trick pony. So hang loose and we'll see what happens here. Okay folks, so the buzz bait was no go. I threw it for about 25 minutes around some areas that generally I get a topwater bite and nothing doing. So I'm going to switch up techniques here. 101 junk fishing. I'm going to throw an 1/8 ounce shaky head and a little zoom shaky head worm, and if that doesn't work, I'll probably take that off and put on a Yum Dinger Cinco style, stick worm, because that's generally what I use, but I thought I'd give this a try. Oh crap, that's the worst cast I think I've ever thrown in my life. Anyway, the water temp might be still a little on the cool side for a topwater bite. The water temp's about between 60 and 63 degrees, depending on which brand of fish finder you use. So I've got a medium light Shakespeare ugly stick spinning around here with a throttle made by Quantum that's spooled up with 6-pound test, and this is kind of a finesse technique. I really like shaky head fishing, but generally I do it with bait casting gear with heavier shaky heads. So, but I thought I'd try something a little different with this. You just gotta, however you fish a shaky head, that's kind of, you can drag it along the bottom or you can, you know, shake it constantly. It's kind of like Texas rig fishing, worm fishing, but, you know, a little different because instead of being a hook with a sliding weight, this is basically a lead head style thing. So, and for those of you that don't know me that well fishing wise, I don't like spinning gear except for maybe bluegill and crappie fishing. I'm not a fan of it bass fishing, but some techniques you have to. So anyway, that's what I'm doing now, so hang tight and we'll see if I can get a bite this way. My shaky head, I had switched to a Senko and I threw it up into some stuff and lost it. I hadn't gotten a bite on it anyway, so I'm throwing one of my least favorite lures of all now. This is a spinnerbait. I have just absolutely no confidence in throwing a spinnerbait at all. And I had one last year and I caught a couple of fish off of it, and then the skirt fell off of it. And I've got replacement skirts, so I guess I could put another white skirt on it. But I've just never ever had good luck with a spinnerbait now. Other people that I fish with, we can be in the boat throwing side-by-side spinnerbait, same color, same weight. They're tearing them up and I'm not. So it just might be a psychological thing more than anything else, but I just don't have good luck with them. I've caught fish on them, don't get me wrong, but I've just never had good luck. So, but that's part of junk fishing, is just picking up whatever you think they might bite on, depending on the conditions, water temperature, water clarity, depth. Pick it up and throw it, find out what happens, and if they don't bite that after a while, then you can switch to a different technique. That is, at least that is my definition of junk fishing. You might Google it and find 15 different definitions of it. I might be wrong to some guys, I might be spot on to others. There's just no telling. It's just something that you have to learn to do on your own and try it out. You probably already do it to some degree. Any bass fisherman I know does. So anyway, I'm gonna throw this around for a while, and if this doesn't work, it might be time to go back to Old Faithful, the jig. So hang tight. It's just not cooperating with me. Everywhere I want to go, it picks up and it starts blowing a little harder, and it's blowing in a front. There's going to be a lot of rain and storms in the next couple of days, so that's to be expected. So this video about junk fishing, you may not actually get to see a fish, and that's something that I kind of want to show the YouTube world, is sometimes you go fishing and you don't catch any. You get skunked, and that's why it's called fishing and not catching. So I'm still throwing the spinnerbait. I threw the jig around in the one cove a little bit, and then 2 or 3 fishermen came in on top of me, so I moved down here on this end of the southeast end of the lake, where there usually are fewer fishermen, and the wind isn't cooperating with me down here. There are fewer fishermen, but the wind seems to be the problem. So you may not get to see a fish today. I may not catch one, and again, that's part of it. You're not gonna go out every time and catch a 5-fish bag of 25 pounds. You're going to go sometimes, and the bass or the catfish or the bluegill or the crappie or whatever you're fishing for just aren't going to cooperate. They're not going to bite, and you know what, that's part of it. And that's something I think more and more YouTube fishermen should show, is the fact that you're not always gonna, things aren't gonna always go perfect. You're not always gonna be on them. Sometimes you're gonna fail. You're not gonna catch anything, and the wind's not gonna play right with you, and you got to mess with your trolling motor, or something like that. The technique, instead of just junk fishing, instead of a technique that you decided you were going to use, just isn't working, and that happens. That's fishing, and that's just, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't make the fish bite. You can throw everything in your tackle box into the water over 12 hours and not catch anything, and sometimes that's what happens. So, and everybody out there, tell your kids, if you're teaching them how to fish, that's just how it is. You're not going to always go out and tear them up. That's just unrealistic, and you can't expect that with a living creature, that it's just going to react to whatever it is that you're doing every time you're doing it. So hang tight, we'll see what happens if I can catch one or not. Well, I actually caught one 5 seconds after that monologue on a spinnerbait, and I actually saw this fish jump, and I flipped the spinnerbait up there where he was. Get out of the trolling motor, buddy. And I got him. So he's not a bad fish. He's not great, but it beats being skunked, I'll tell you that. Got the little white spinnerbait, little bass, probably 14-15 inches long, maybe weigh about a pound. But so there you go. I was just going through this soliloquy about not catching anything and how that's part of the game, and then he tore my arm off. So, you know, sometimes it happens. It's you know, last few days of April, water temperatures 64 degrees, water clarity's not great. You know, those are some of the conditions, and I'm using a lure I ain't great with, so it happens. Hang loose, let's see if I get another. This is sort of a continuation of last week's video about junk fishing. Last week the weather didn't cooperate, and the wind was terrible, and the lake was covered in people. So I didn't get to film as much, and then life kind of got in the way, and I didn't really get much uploaded. So I'm back this morning a week later, and there's the first fish of the day. It's sort of a dink. Not sort of, it is a dink. And so here we are a week later, and you can tell by the weather it's cloudy. It's pretty cool this morning too. The air temp's like 54, the water temp's, and it's a few degrees warmer than it was last week. It's at 66 in some places of the lake, on the surface of course. So back to what I was explaining last week, junk fishing. I'm back to the spinnerbait, which I caught my one and only fish on last week, and I just got another one. So it appears as though the bass seem to want to key in on this spinnerbait. This one's a little bit better, but not much. And not all the bass in this lake have probably spawned yet. In fact, water temp is right around spawn in most areas of the lake. So there's that guy. That's a male, I would imagine. So we will continue to fish along here, and hopefully I'll catch a couple more here while I'm talking about junk fishing, which, as I explained, is pretty much what we all do. So hang tight, hang loose, and we'll see you in a minute. Being a junk fisherman can pay off, because right here the water is about 12 foot deep, and as you get further back into this cut, sorry about that, the water shallows up, so you can use different techniques. Like right here I'm pitching a shaky head, because the water is a little deeper, and then further out, further back into this cut, the water shallows up, and you could throw something like a crank or a spinnerbait, or more of a shallow water presentation. And that's where junk fishing kind of gets a bad name, because people call it junk fishing instead of calling it versatile fishing or something that doesn't give it such a bad name. So in my opinion, junk fishing just means being a more versatile fisherman, so especially in the bass fishing world. So don't hesitate to take 4 or 5 rods with you and throw 4 or 5 different presentations during the day to see what they're biting on. So hang tight, we'll see if we catch anything else here. I finally caught a semi-decent fish on the shaky head. Oh, man, he ain't great, but I couldn't get to my camera in time when I set the hook, so that's a little weird. But there he is. I said semi-decent. He's not great, but better than the first 2 I caught today. I can't get that hook out. Look at that. There it goes. So hold him up there a little bit better. Not bad. Probably 1.5 pound, 2 pound, 15-inch fish. Got rid of my Cinco. I'm kind of running low on those, so we'll flip him back into the lake there. But I've been throwing the shaky head around for quite some time, and didn't seem like I could buy a bite. And finally, I managed to come up with him. So that is 2 fish on 2 different techniques, which is classification of junk fishing in my opinion. 2-week video. I hope you enjoyed it. Junk fishing, different definitions of it, what you can call it, what you can't call it, what it stands for, and what it's about. It's basically just going to the lake with all your rod and reels, or 4 or 5 rod and reels, and throwing different lures, different times, trying to find out what they're keying in on. That's a lot of what junk fishing is, and that's what we did today out here on what is my favorite lake, Lake of Egypt, here in southern Illinois. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I know it took me a little while to get it out, but life happens, so hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, like, share, subscribe my channel, and the next time you're not got anything to do, you're all caught up on work and life, get out and have your own outdoor adventure. We'll see y'all on the next one.